Welcome to the Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. Today we're going to give you examples of what the fallen state looked like. There is no reason for human beings to be suffering as they are today. And the only reason that they are doing it is because they are not aware of what is going on and how to overcome it. I have with me my sidekick. James Hake is here, and James is my radio producer. I'm glad you're here, James.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. And by the way, James is a very smart guy. So if you want to be on the radio show because he's the radio producer, you can call him and he'll put you on. It doesn't matter. He'll have you on. All right, our first example is from TMZ. Madonna. Madonna has a son who is 15 years old now, and for a while, Madonna's son went everywhere she went while performing, or when performing. And there came a time when he didn't want to do it anymore. He wanted to be with his father. So James, give us the information, the breakdown on the son.
Okay, so her son's name is Rocco, and as you said, he was 15 years old now. As recently as 2 years ago, a year and a half, he was a super fan of hers, according to another woman that we saw.
Wendy Williams, that
Wendy Williams.
we have coming up next.
Yeah, we'll get to her.
Yeah.
But he actually went on tour with Madonna at age 13, 14 years old. And long story short, he got sick of her, and he didn't want to go on tour with her anymore.
Right.
And he wants to be with his father, Guy Ritchie.
And Wendy Williams talked about the situation one day on her show, and she was she was sad that her son didn't like her anymore. And she was jealous or admired the way Madonna's son liked her.
That's
and
right.
she was on her show crying, saying, he doesn't want to be with me anymore.
That's right.
Isn't that right? And so Madonna was performing recently on stage, and she had a bottle of whiskey.
Tequila.
And she was crying, she was upset, and she was just drinking tequila because she could not handle the fact that her son did not want to be with her anymore. And it sounded as though she blamed the husband, right, his father?
She's in a major battle with Guy Ritchie.
Right. The point is that this boy is 15 years old, and if he wants to be with his father, there's no reason for Madonna to try and keep him away from his father, except for selfish reasons.
That's how I see it, too.
Yeah. And so Madonna is in the fallen state. Another example is Wendy Williams, a TV talk show host. She has a funny show. It's kind of entertaining.
Very entertaining.
So tell us about this woman, her son.
She went on Conan O'Brien show at some point recently, and Conan asked, how strict of a mother are you? And she said, I'm pretty strict, but I'm also pretty open, and we don't close our doors in my home.
And Kevin walked in on her. She and her husband having what?
It was like an inappropriate sex act.
They were having sex because she refused to let them close the door. So Kevin walked in on her when she and her husband when he was 13 years old. And so Conan O'Brien asked her, what did you do? She said, well, I just looked around at him and went back to doing what I was doing to my husband. And the husband, she said, and he asked, well, what about your husband? What did he do? She said, he just looked up, I guess.
And this sounds like her idea.
Right.
But her husband, Kevin Sr., is okay with it, and Kevin Jr. doesn't have a say, apparently.
What did she mean when she said Kevin saw the TV on? What was on the TV?
I don't know. They maybe had something inappropriate on the TV as they were in their room together.
Right, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
So the mother, the wife, would not allow the two men of the house, her husband and her, at the time he was 13, but 15-year-old son, to close the bedroom doors. Isn't that amazing? And that is another sign of the fallen state. There's one more story that we want to give you, and this is out of Atlanta, Georgia. And what is this, James?
Okay, so this happened a month ago. A homosexual couple, ages 21 and 24, two black men, were sleeping together, just sleeping together, in one of their mother's home. And as they were sleeping, the mother's boyfriend walked in on them and poured scalding water on them and burned them very badly and said, "Get out of my house with your gay blank." They were hospitalized for some time, and the son's friend said that the pain is just excruciating, 24 hours a day.
I bet.
He only got 10 hours of sleep in the course of a week. There are no hate crime charges in Georgia, but they want to press hate crime charges.
But that's ridiculous because all crimes, especially like that, are considered as hate crime. This man didn't do this out of love. He didn't say like, "Oh, I love you, I'm gonna score you to death."
Right.
So it's hate.
Correct.
Yeah. Georgia don't need hate crime. Crime is hate.
Yeah, but the there may be some federal hate crime charges against this guy.
So what happened to the guy that did this?
He's getting charges pressed against him for aggravated assault. There are some really rough pictures of them on Washington Post website.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the point to this story is what happened to this boy that it was okay for him to bring another man into his mother home and sleep together as though they were husband and wife. You know, that's the fallen state. When I was growing up, this would have never happened at all. When I started dating, you were almost too embarrassed to let your parents or grandparents know you were dating.
Yep.
And the idea of bringing someone home and sleeping in your parents' house, I remember when my uncles would come home from Indiana to Alabama, and if they brought someone with them, that woman did not stay at the house. She stayed either at a hotel somewhere or at another family member's house. There was no way my grandmother or grandfather would allow them to come in the house and sleep together. It's too bad for these two guys. I mean, I think the man that did that is evil too. I mean, how is he going to do that to them when he's sleeping with the boy's mother in front of him? There is a spiritual order to life, and that order is God and Christ, Christ and man, man over woman, and woman over children. It's a spiritual order. It's not that one is better than the other, but the man and woman work together. When the man loved God with all his heart, soul, and might, and the woman loved the husband who loved God. And then those values that we should be living will work. Whenever the men are weak, and most men are weak today, and they allow these women to come in with these liberal values or non-values, and they are setting the standards in their home, and the kids are suffering for it. They're having a rough time with it. And that is because the husband is in the fallen state too. They're angry and they are unconscious of what they're doing. Wrong seem right and right seem wrong. And in that state, they're so selfish that they don't even care how they destroy the children. It's because it's about me, what I want, make me feel good. I want to be free. This past week, we were in Fresno, California. What was the little city?
Madera.
We visited a juvenile detention center. What was that and what was it called?
That was the Madera County Juvenile Center.
And there were about 20 young males there that we talked to, and those young guys were going in and out of juvenile. And when talking to them, we found out that their mothers on drugs or in jail, their fathers on drugs or in jail, and these young boys don't have parents to raise them. And as a result, they become like their parents. And these young boys really don't have a chance. They didn't have a chance and don't have one right now unless someone comes along, and we did, to say you got to forgive your parents. You got to forgive them for what they have done to you. Otherwise, this thing will be passed on from generation to generation to generation. The thing I appreciated about those guys, they were kind of shy about it, but they were willing to talk about their lives and what is going on.
It was nice when you went after the formal event And you were able to talk to them one-on-one?
One-on-one.
Or a few at a time?
We were just talking one-on-one, so they were not as shy about it.
Much more natural.
And it was like heartbreaking. Absolutely just mind-blowing. It's amazing how evil is at work. And most of the parents, the people we ran into up there, they said they were Christians. They all claimed to be Christians. They believe in God, and yet they are angry. And they are passing this anger on to their children. I want you to know that there's not one person walking this earth who has anger in his or her heart and have a relationship with God. Satan is their father. And that's why they're messing up everything. But they claim that God is their father. They know about God because they read about him, but they don't know him. They do not know God. Satan is still their father. Just because you read the Bible, and just because you lift up holy hands, and just because you say the name of Jesus, and just because you give money, and just because you pray, that doesn't make you a child of God. You need a brand new nature. You need to renew your mind, and only God can do that when you admit you were wrong. So we left the Juvenile Detention Center, and where did we go?
We stopped by the hotel that they set up for us just to check in.
Well, they don't need to know.
And then, and then we went straight to Valley State Prison in Chowchilla.
Yes. We went to Valley State Prison, folks. And there we were in a gym, right?
Yeah, a big gym.
In a big gym with 150 inmates. And some of them had killed their wives, killed their mothers, killed their children. One guy told me he killed his wife and the children.
We walked up and there was no guards around.
Yeah.
We were just accompanied, and these were supposedly level 2 guys, level 2 inmates based on their behavior, meaning that they were on the safer side as far as how they behaved themselves.
Yeah.
And so they had more freedom. And these guys set up the chairs. They set up 150 chairs in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, they did it just like that.
Yeah. And then the first guy that you talked to before we even started the speech was a guy who had killed a woman, robbed and killed a woman at age 16. And he was now 45, 43 years old.
He'd been in
and
prison
for
since
life.
16. And I asked, well, why did you kill her? They were trying to rob her. Why did you kill her? He said, because she didn't have any money on her. And they got mad because she didn't have any money.
She didn't have the
the
amount of money.
It was so stupid. I'm like, you killed her because she didn't have any money? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, and he was torn up about it. He was tearing
Yeah.
himself. Every time that he saw a mother and her child, he beat himself up over it.
Yeah, he thought feeling guilty about it like that made him sorry for what he had done, and it was a way for him to repent. But I explained to him, nope, that doesn't work. You're putting guilt on yourself, but you're not changing with the guilt. Guilt does not make you change. Just think how many times you've been guilty for something you did, and you make yourself feel really bad about it, and Satan says, wow, you're evil. You look what you have done. You're no good, and you feel really guilty. And as soon as the guilt leaves, you go and do it again. So I told him, never, ever, ever, right?
Yeah.
Never, never, never. Well, I said it to the whole group.
Yeah.
Never, ever, never, ever, never, 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 ever. And they started laughing. Never, 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 because I went on like that. Get into guilt when you do wrong. Because guilt is straight out of hell. It's a false illusion of feeling sorry for what you're have done. It does not work. Every guilty person repeat it again. Because it's a false sense of repentance for what you've done. It's a false sense of feeling bad for what you've done. It does not work.
And after the speech, they all lined up, well, not all of them, but dozens probably lined up behind one behind another, and just got in a line and talked with you for minutes at a time. And these were Mexicans, whites, blacks.
Yeah.
One guy in a wheelchair. A couple of guys tried to test you.
Yeah, some old guy gonna roll up on me in a wheelchair. A black guy, you know how black people are. And not all, obviously. But you know how they think they know God, right? So he gonna roll up in a wheelchair. And finally I got to him and he said, "Can I test your spirit?" I said, "What? Can I test your spirit?" I said, "Why do you want to test my spirit?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And he asked me, did I love Satan? I said, "No, I don't love Satan." And he said, "Well, you're supposed to love Satan or something, right?"
Yeah, I only partially heard it.
Yeah, you're supposed to love Satan. I said, "Well, look, you can go ahead and love him. I don't love him." And I went back to the normal folks.
But you mostly had really serious, honest, open conversations with these guys.
I am convinced that had those guys knew what we know now about evil and how it work, they would not be in jail today. But they didn't know. They didn't know what was driving them. They took credit for it as though it was them doing that. And that's why people feel guilty too, because they literally think that they are doing it. And we heard story after story after story about this kind of stuff. And none of them, all of them, had bad relationship with their mothers and fathers, where their fathers were not around, but with their mothers. They all, except for one who was lying, hated their mothers. And I've been saying for a long time that if not all, most, for sure, most men of all races hate women. They hate them. That's why when they meet a woman, all they see is sex. They see beauty and sex or whatever they look for. They don't see a woman that they can respect and love. And the reason that they hate women, because they hate their mothers, and they take their aggression out on the women that they meet. Because when you hate your mother, you become like what you hate. You also become attracted to what you hate, and you're subject to what you hate. So they get with these women, and they can't handle the women because they couldn't handle their mothers. And this cycle is being repeated, repeated, repeated. It's a spiritual thing. It is not physical at all. The guy that shot the woman and killed her because she didn't have money, because he hated his mother. Why would you shoot someone because they don't have money? But he hates women. And the worst thing that can happen to children is not to love their fathers. When you don't love your father, you're not going to love or know God. And most people hate their fathers. Even when they don't hate them, they've just been turned away from their fathers. Most men and women do not hate their fathers. And when you hear them say that they hate their fathers, it's only because they've been told that it's your father's fault. Because every angry person, I don't care what color, male or female, old or young, feel like a victim. And all victims blame someone else. I saw the whites move into the blacks area and did well. Instead of the blacks learning from that, they blamed them and ran them off. The Mexicans came, the Italians came, and they ran them all off without learning from them because they felt that jealous. Even other African people, real African folks, come in from Africa. They set up shop in the black community. They do very well. And instead of blacks learning, what did you do? What am I missing? They say, you think you're better than us. And they start hating the blacks because they feel like victims because they're angry. And so they hate, even in family members, it's not just, community to community. Even in your own family, you can have angry brothers and sisters, cousins, wife or husband, mama or daddy who are angry. And if you're not one of the angry people and you're doing well in life because you don't have anything holding you back, they'll turn on you. Give me some money. And if you don't get them any money, you think you're better than us. And they go around telling everybody, I was sick and my own child didn't give me no money. I've seen it because all angry people are in a fallen state and they don't have a sound mind and they're very insecure because God is not with them. Satan is their father. So we visited the prison. It was overwhelming. Mm-hmm. It was like, they opened up and it was great. And then the next day, Friday.
Yeah, Friday we went to the county jail.
The county jail, and how was that?
Well, in that place there were inmates, about 18 inmates, male and female, and their families showed up.
Yeah.
because they were graduating from this program called Break the Chains. They were, in programs learning trades, but you went and talked to them about overcoming their anger so they wouldn't repeat the same issues and end up in jail again.
Yes. And that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't take any questions and answers. I just gave the talk about you got to forgive your parents. Otherwise, you're going to end up back in here. You got to drop your anger. Don't ask them to forgive you. You forgive them, and God will forgive you, because most people will not forgive you. And I encouraged them to let that go. And I told the parents, if they have done this to their children, they need to go to them and apologize. I'm sorry for turning you away from your father or being impatient with you, willing myself on you, and blah, blah, blah. And they seem to like it, right?
Yeah, there was a Hispanic guy who basically kind of repeated what you were saying.
Yeah.
He brought his little daughter up, and it was kind of sad to see, but it was nice to see too.
It's like they never heard the truth before, because people play church, but all the preacher does is read the Bible, sing a song, take up money, and they're out of there. That's all they ever do, and they think they've done their job. And so these people, they welcome this message of forgiveness and what goes on in the homes and stuff like that. And then we have 5 minutes, so from there, where did we go?
From there, we went.
One guy on the way out at the jail, one guy was walking near me, and he's like, "How old are you?" "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm pretty old." "Why?" He said, "Because you don't hear that anymore. You sound like an old person." But anyway, we went to the church, right?
Yeah, lastly, we went to the church. You were on the Chris Daniels show on KMJ.
Oh, yeah.
And you talked about the antidote.
Right. My brand new book, Healing America from the Poison of Hate, Blame, and Victimhood, The Antidote. And it's a book that I wanted to write for the last 20 years. It's a must read. Everybody and their mama need to read that book. And go ahead, the church.
The Valley West Christian Center.
Oh my God, huh?
Yes, that pastor just let you talk, let you interact with people.
He told me I could do whatever I want, any kind of way I want, and much time as I need. So I sat there and we had a real open, honest
church
up in there. Give them just a few highlights of what happened.
Okay, so it was mostly Hispanic and some white and some black. And you basically started off asking, how many of you have anger? And a lot of people raised their hands. How many of you are Christians? And this was a type of place where many former addicts go.
Yeah.
At one point, this woman stands up because she's one of the angry people. And young lady, she has one daughter with this Mexican guy that...
a white woman. What a white women.
And she was just apparently under distress, and she was really touched by what you were talking about with anger and family and all of that. And she knew that something was wrong with herself and with her situation, but she just couldn't let go of her judgment against this boyfriend.
And she had wanted to move in with him, but he would not move in with her. He kept saying, "Well, I can't do it because I don't have a job," and blah, 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 right?
And he wouldn't marry her either.
Right, he would not marry her. And then she said, "Well, that's not true because I got 2 places, and you still would not move in." And he finally admitted that he wasn't going to move in with her because she's so angry. And he knew that it wasn't going to work. And so she was blaming him for it. She said, "You make me feel this way." And then he stood up and said, "Well, I'm sorry if I made you feel that way. I don't want to be the man that makes you feel that way. I'm sorry." And I told him, "You are not to blame for the way she feels." I said, "You are weak, and it's adding to her problem, but she had this anger before you met her, and all you're doing is bringing it out with your weakness. So you're not to blame. She is to blame for holding on to it. Her parents was on drugs, and daddy on drugs, and grandmother raised her, and it was a problem with the grandmama and all that kind of stuff. So she was angry before this guy met her." And I said that because people like to blame other people for the way they feel, instead of getting over it, admitting that they're wrong, and get past it.
This 66-year-old woman stood up toward the end and
She
told...
came down front.
Yeah, she told that girl that you better listen to him, what he's saying, because he's right. My parents did that to me, and I did that to my children. And she's been suffering because she's so judgmental.
Yeah.
And she admitted to being like a nasty person. And this 22-year-old kid, too, guy.
Oh, yeah.
He walked up and said, I'm going to talk with my mother tonight because I've been thinking about this and it is exactly what I need.
The whole theme is all people with anger are of your father the devil, and your nature is evil. There is no love in anger. There is no patience in anger. There is no God in anger except for your father the devil. And I say this to you because you need to forgive. You need a brand new mind, a brand new heart, and the only way you're going to develop that sound mind, renewed heart, is that you're going to have to admit you are wrong. Because it's not what happened to you that you feel, but it's your anger, your hatred of the person that did it to you, and it corrupt your soul and keep your soul away from God by keeping you in darkness. There was a man walked over to me at the church afterward and said, so you have perfect peace? And I said, yes, I do. He said, what can I do to get perfect peace? I want perfect peace. And I said, you got to repent. You got to forgive. In the Lord's Prayer, he says, forgive me my trespasses as I forgive those who trespass against me. Thank you so much for tuning in. James, thanks for helping me out with that.
You're welcome.
I totally appreciate it.
Cool.